What's up, guys? So, Murphy's Philosophy, we are going to talk about Berettas, the fantastic Beretta. Do Berettas suck? Well, let's talk about it and see what we can find out. So, here is a little smattering of Berettas, and I've been shooting Berettas for a while, off and on for a long time, but I've gotten really serious about it the last couple of years. And so let's go over the Beretta. We all know the history of the Beretta and all that. I'm not going to go into all that. I'm not forgotten weapons. So we're just going to kind of talk about the Berettas, how they work, and some of the pros and cons with Berettas and all that. So the first thing I'm going to say is I like Berettas. I'm a fan of the classics. I like the old school kind of guns, the guns that were really prevalent when I kind of got into the business. So the old SIG P226s, the Beretta M9s and 92 FSs, the Glock 17s, stuff like that. I'm a big fan of that, but I really like the metal framed guns, the alloy framed guns, and Berettas are that, and they are iconic for a number of reasons. So, simple features about the Beretta. This is an M9, and this is just a standard Beretta M9, okay? Fixed front sight, you have a dovetailed rear, as we all know, no Picatinny rail, none of that. And just kind of as a test and to see how it goes, I've been carrying this gun concealed for a little bit now, and kind of putting it through its paces, taking it out to the range. This gun's got well over 1,000 rounds through it at this point, and I've only had it a couple of months. This is my newest one, and this is a 92X. Most people are familiar with this, and I've had this gun for a while. I bought this gun when the 92Xs first came out, so whatever that was, 2 years, 3 years ago, four, I don't know. And I've had this gun ever since. This gun's pretty much unmodified from when I got it, with the exception of the sights. So these are Wilson Combat sights. Other than that, it's how it came from the factory. These two guns have been modified. So, do Berettas suck? No, I'm going to say they don't. Berettas are kind of known for their reliability and for their accuracy. One of the things I love about Berettas, if you get a real deal full-size gun, is you get this nice long 5-inch barrel. And that is just fantastic, because that nice long barrel provides you with all the velocity that you can get out of that 9mm round, which is a big thing. A lot of people tend to forget that when you put any caliber, whether it's a 9mm, 45, whatever, into a gun that has a shorter barrel, you're really decreasing your ballistic performance. And it can be quite substantial. So those of you out there who carry like 3-inch barreled guns or 3.5-inch barreled guns, just realize that you're not getting anywhere close to the velocity out of that round that is printed on the side of that box. Most ammunition manufacturers test their rounds out of 5-inch barreled guns, 4.5 to 5-inch barrel guns. And so you're not going to get even close to that out of your 3-inch barreled gun. But these all have full 5-inch barrels. Well, this one's a Centurion, so it's like 4.25, I think. But full 5-inch barrel guns on the original M9 or 92 FS, which is awesome. You get all that velocity, all that accuracy. These guns are pretty accurate. This one I've bench rested, and the best groups I've got out of this gun have been 3 inches at 25 yards from a bench rest, and that's just with standard 115 grain range ammo. That's not with anything special. So if I were to put some really good ammo in it, those groups might tighten up to maybe 2.5. I mean, who knows? But standard range ammo out of this M9, I'm getting 3-inch groups at 25. So that's pretty good. I haven't bench tested these other two. So what are the drawbacks of the M9? Well, it's a little heavier than like the plastic fantastics that are out there these days. So because you have an alloy frame, My M9 loaded up with 15 rounds in the mag plus one in the chamber comes in right at 40 ounces. So 40 ounces fully loaded, which, I mean, isn't bad for a full-size alloy frame gun loaded to capacity. That's not terrible. But they're a little heavier than your Glocks and whatnot. But I like that. Like, the weight doesn't bother me at all. So what are kind of some other drawbacks? Well, the trigger. So a lot of people have trouble with the double action, single action triggers because I don't think nowadays a lot of new shooters, they didn't grow up with the double single action triggers the way that I did and some other older people did. When I was coming up, service pistols all had double single triggers. I mean, that's what everyone pretty much carried. It was either a Beretta or a 92 FS or a SIG P226 or a SIG P229 or a HK USP, something like that. And, across the spectrum from federal law enforcement agencies to state and local agencies, even the military, everyone carried double action, single action pistols. Glocks were really coming up and the Glock 17 was getting really popular, but still, for the most part, most people carry double action, single action pistols. And so I kind of grew up shooting double single guns. So for me, it's not that big of a deal. But for a lot of new shooters, the double action, single action trigger is going to be something that takes getting used to. And that's what I'm going to say about the double single trigger is that I don't think it's any worse than a single action trigger, like a Glock trigger or something that's, like the SIG P320s or whatever. I don't think it's worse than that. I think it's just different and there's a learning curve. But once you learn it, once you get used to it, it's really not a big deal. I think it's really just practice. And once you practice with it a lot, it kind of goes away. I think about a double action, single action trigger the way that I think about a car. So in cars, you have your automatic transmission and you have your standard transmission, your stick shift, right? And I kind of look at constant action guns like Glocks, the P320s, striker fired pistols. I kind of look at those as like your automatics. That's like an automatic car. You just step on the gas pedal and go, step on the brake and stop, right? All the shifting of the gears happens in the engine, right? With a double action, single action pistol, I kind of look at this as like driving a standard. It's like a stick shift, right? When you pull the trigger, you're, cocking the gun and pulling the hammer back and all that. And then after that, it's all single action. And then when you're done, you have to manually decock the gun. So it's like you're doing all the stuff to the gun. Just like a standard transmission, you're the one pushing the clutch and shifting the gears, right? And anyone who's driven a standard will tell you that after a while, you just kind of get used to it. I drove a standard for a lot of years. It was no big deal. Once you get used to it, it's kind of not that big a thing. Double single triggers, in my mind, that's kind of how I look at them. After you run them for a while, after you put a few thousand rounds down range and you really train with the gun, it's kind of not a big problem. It's kind of not a deal. So I don't get hung up on the trigger systems. Now, on the trigger systems of Berettas, I think Berettas have the best double single triggers out there. They can be tuned and made just really, really good. In my opinion, better than an H&K, better than a SIG. They can have really amazing, smooth triggers. And so I kind of have the three different ways of doing things here. So this gun, talk about triggers and how to customize them and make them better. Because on your standard Beretta, the trigger is not going to be that good. Now, this is a 92X. It came with the D-spring, and I think Beretta polished some stuff in here, something, I'm not sure. But this one came with a better trigger out of the box than this M9 did, okay? And I think a lot of the new Berettas are coming that way. But if you have a standard Beretta M9 or this is a Brigadier, you know, you're going to have that 20-pound hammer spring. You're going to have that 11 to 12-pound double action pull, 5 or 6 pound or something single action. It's going to be challenging. So how to get that better? So let's take a look at this trigger. So this trigger has I think a 16-pound hammer spring in it. And the double action's not bad. You know, it's not bad. Single action is also, it's not bad. It's a shootable gun, right? But the problem with this gun is the over travel, okay? So, and the reset. So after the gun cycles, we'll see the reset all the way out there, okay? Reset's not the best in the world. But really what detracts from the triggers on a standard Beretta, and this goes for your M9s, your Brigadiers, all your 92FS, all your standard Berettas, is the over travel. Over travel on a double single gun really can affect your accuracy, okay? More so, in my opinion, than like a striker fired gun or something like that, especially in the double action pull. Because if you think about it, you're pulling, let's say, 10 pounds. And then once that trigger breaks, you're pulling essentially nothing. All you're pulling against is the trigger return spring, which is maybe 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds, right? So for those of you who don't know what over travel is when you're pulling the trigger and the gun goes boom here. The hammer falls, the trigger, the sear breaks, the gun goes boom, but the trigger continues to move rearward until it stops. So the distance from trigger going boom until the trigger actually coming to a rest, stopping, that distance is over travel. And so on this gun, again, standard stock Beretta right here, I'm going to kind of find where the over travel is on this trigger. So I'm going to hold this here. See if I can get it to break. Come on. It's kind of tricky to do. There we go. So there's it break. There's the over travel. All that you're looking at. That is a solid 1/8 of an inch of over travel. And that's going to affect your shooting. And I know because this gun is more difficult to shoot than either one of these because of that over travel. And the over travel on the double action is about the same, maybe even a little bit more. So that's what you're really fighting in a double single gun. Now, options, how to improve your Beretta trigger to make the gun even better and more shootable. How do we do this? Well, you have two options in my opinion. The first option is this. And this is the simplest and the cheapest of the options. So if you're on a budget, if you just don't want to spend a whole lot, this would be the option to go with. And in this option, this M9 has a 16-pound hammer spring, and it has a LTT enhanced performance trigger bar. In a Beretta, the only way I know of to get rid of trigger over travel is by a performance trigger bar. You can get one from LTT or you can get one from Wilson Combat. That's the only way to do it, as far as I know. And this gun, when I bought it, had a lot of over travel in the trigger. So 16-pound hammer spring LTT trigger bar that I fit into this gun. This gun also has an action polish job. So the hammer, the sear, all the internal parts have been taken apart and polished to a mirror shine and put back together. And so the result of that is, if you notice the trigger pull here, you'll see that's it. Absolutely no over travel whatsoever in that trigger. The double action, very nice and smooth. Very nice. And if we check out the trigger reset, right there. As you can see, much more reduced trigger reset than the standard Beretta, okay? So if you're on a budget, you just don't want to pay the money for, something more, in my opinion, a very, very good option would be just to get the enhanced trigger bar and a lighter hammer spring. You can go 16 pound, 14 pound, something like that. Polish up the internals, and you're going to have a very good, very shootable trigger. This gun has a very nice trigger. It's very easy to shoot. It's no big deal. So this is one option. The trigger bars are about 75, 80 bucks from LTT. The springs are freaking nothing. They're like $5 a piece. And the other work, the polishing and stuff, you just do by yourself. It's free, essentially. So that's a very good option. That's how I've set this gun up. And that'll get you where you need to go. That will really make the Beretta, in my opinion, a very good, very shootable gun. And it's a good way to go. So for about 80, 90 bucks, you can have a very, very good trigger for your Beretta. Now, if you want to go all out and you want, in my opinion, the best trigger for your Beretta, then you can do what I've done to this gun. This gun has the full LTT trigger job in a bag done to it. And I opted for the 14-pound hammer spring. And this has the MP3 coated trigger job in the bag. It's their top of the line one. And this trigger pull is just phenomenal. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. The trigger on this, you'll see, I mean, absolutely crisp, no over travel at all. The double action, very smooth, very, very nice. So yeah, if you want the best you can get and you want to spend the money, the trigger job in the bag is really going to pay dividends for you. It's going to be very nice if you want to go that route and spend the money. The NP3 trigger jobs in a bag are about 240 bucks, somewhere around there. So, in my opinion, that's the best you can get. Now, where does the rubber meet the road here? Where's the bottom line? Like, what would I say would be necessary if you were going to carry a Beretta for concealed carry or something like that? What would I do to it? What would I consider to be the bare bones minimum? Well, in my opinion, the bare bones minimum for me, for the accuracy that I require and for shooting the gun, the minimum is this. This is the minimum. At minimum, I want a 16 or 14 pound hammer spring, and I want a custom fit by me LTT trigger bar to get rid of that over travel. I can shoot a standard Beretta okay, and I can get work done with this gun. This gun's got quite a few rounds to it, but the difference in accuracy between this gun and this gun is, it's not even close. I'm far more accurate with this M9 than I am this 92X. And that is because of the performance trigger bar in this gun. The elimination of the over travel, the shorter reset, the smoother operation, yeah, it really shines. Would I say that you need to do the full trigger job in the bag, you know, the full all custom parts and all that? I'd say no. The difference in triggers between these two guns, the one with the full trigger job in the bag and just the trigger bar with some polishing and a lighter hammer spring, the difference in these two triggers is small. It's there, you can feel it, but it's not huge. It's not like an oh my God difference, in my opinion. This one is definitely better, but it's not a huge amount better. In my opinion, I can hit what I aim at with this. I can do just fine with this. So were I to do it again, I would stick probably to just the trigger bar if I wanted to be minimalist with it. Now this gun isn't really for carry. I built this gun for fun, as you can probably see by the grips that are on it. This is a fun gun. I built this just to take to the range and have fun with and all that. So I spent the money in the upgraded stuff and the grips and all that. But this is more just kind of a fun gun. This is, if I decide to carry a Beretta instead of my 1911, I carry my M9. So, any other upgrades to the M9? that I would recommend, the only one is, and this is dependent on the gun, is the sights. Now, you can only change the rear sight on a Beretta, which for me is fine. But this Beretta shot about 3 inches low at 25 yards when I bench tested it. And so to correct for that, I had to buy a taller rear sight. And that's why this one sports the Wilson Combat rear sight, because I needed to raise that level of impact up about 3 inches. And once I put that sight in, it did that. It rose my point of aim, point of impact exactly where I want it. So other than the trigger, you can do sights. I'm not going to talk too much about the G conversion. I have that on all my guns. That's a personal preference. If you want a decock only, then do it. It's $50 from Beretta. Not that big of a deal. Or if some people like the safety. So that's just personal choice. I prefer the decock only. So that's what I have on all my guns. But that's really it. You know, Berettas, do they suck? No, they're great. I've had no issues with them. They have a very good long track record in law enforcement. And let me address one thing real quick before I wrap this up. I know a lot of guys coming out of the military, okay? Got a lot of friends that are former military, trained with military guys, all that stuff. And some guys coming out of the military hated the Berettas, and some guys liked them. And so I think in the military, the Beretta M9 got kind of a bad rap. And I don't think that was entirely the fault of Beretta. I don't think it was a fault of the design. Because anyone who's ever been in the mill knows pistols are tertiary weapons. They're not maintained very well. Parts aren't replaced very well. And when you have a gun that requires maintenance like Berettas do, and they don't get that maintenance, they're also not they're not kept right, they're not lubed right, they're just not taken care of, you're going to have problems. And I think a lot of guys coming out of the military who were issued the Beretta who had problems with it, I think it was mostly because of that. It wasn't because of the design of the gun. Also keep in mind in the military, most of the time they shoot NATO rounds. So they're shooting 124 plus P rounds. And no handgun that I know of is designed to shoot steady nothing but plus P ammo. Not the Beretta, not the SIG P226, not even Glocks. If you read the instruction manuals for these guns, they'll tell you, sure, yeah, you can shoot plus P through them, but it's going to accelerate parts wear and damage. So if you have a military M9 and you're shooting nothing but NATO rounds, which are 124 plus Ps, they're hot rounds, you're going to have to do even more maintenance on the gun. And that maintenance isn't getting done, and so then you're going to have a lot more problems. But I'll tell you, as far as law enforcement is concerned, the Beretta 92 or M9 has a stellar track record. It was the issued gun of the LAPD for a very long time, and many, many other law enforcement agencies around the country, scores of law enforcement agencies all around Europe and Italy and all over the place issued Beretta 92s, and they've seen service all around the world for 4 decades. And very reliable, durable, accurate handguns is basically the consensus. So yeah, I'd say Berettas are great guns. If you want more of a classic gun, if you're like me and you like the classics, then I think a Beretta 92 or M9 is awesome. Me personally, y'all know my stance on weapon-mounted lights for concealed carry guns. I made a video on that. I also made a video on red dot on concealed carry guns, so I'm not going to rehash that stuff here. Y'all know that I don't care a damn about any of that stuff. So for me, a standard Beretta like this is great. This gets the job done. It gives me everything that I need, everything I want. There's really nothing on it that I would improve other than what I've talked about. And with those modifications, this is a great gun. And I've been rocking this Beretta for a few weeks now, pretty much exclusively. Really seeing how it carries and how it shoots. I've been putting about 200 to 300 rounds a week through this gun, and it's been great. This one has seen quite a bit of action as well. And so, yeah, that's kind of my spiel on Berettas. I like them. I think they're really good guns. I think they're iconic guns, and I really like that. And they're great shooting guns. Don't be scared about the double action, single action trigger. If you're on the fence about a Beretta, don't let the trigger scare you away. All it takes is time and practice, and you will learn the double action, single action trigger. It's not that big of a deal. So if you want a slice of some classic guns, man, the hero gun of the 90s, this gun right here, pick you up a Beretta. They're freaking awesome. Anyway, that's all I have for today, guys. I appreciate everybody watching and everybody who subscribed and all that. I'm gonna try to put more videos out. I've been so fucking busy over the last few months that I just have not had time to do it, but hopefully I'm gonna remedy that. Anyway, that's Berettas, guys. That's my opinion on them. I love these things. They run great. Anyway, it's Murphy signing off.